whole thing, you know.
You know what we say in construction, don't you? Just do something even if it's wrong. You know.
I heard cock and paint and make what it ain't.
What do you call it? What did you say?
You cock and paint and make it what it ain't.
Oh, caulk and paint. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just, you know, just bad construction language.
No, yeah. So I'm here with Alexei Novitzky. You know, I think it's interesting how you pronounce your name.
Well, I mean, the proper way is Alexei Novitzky.
Alexei Novitzky.
Yep.
See,
like that EI makes an A noise, like the word slay or away.
You're dealing with Tennessee here, so you got to really, you know, talk slow. And I'm just kidding. Alexei, and I need to remember Russian, right? Alexei, not.
Yep. And then the nicknames like Alyosha, so like Alusha or Lucius, you know.
Lucius would be easier, but
I mean, that's what everybody calls me, basically.
Oh, really? Lucius? Yeah. That sounds exotic. I like that.
I've had that since high school. Like high school soccer, it was way easier to say for people.
But we're here without our partner in crime, Chris Lato. We were hoping he could be with us, and he may be at some point in time. But I tried to get all three of us together on this today. It's difficult. You have people all over the world, and you're trying to get them together at one point in time. It's difficult. But we had this idea, or actually it came. This whole idea came out of Lucius's book, which I have. You should buy this book. And I always forget. The Infinite Pool of I can't read. Experience and awareness. Well, what happens is my eyes get used to this bright monitor, and then I look at a dark book and I can't see it. That's what happens when you do CAD work your entire life. Your eyes go bad. But so anyway, what would you say this is about? I named it Magic Squares and Electrogravitic pulse blimps.
Right.
How would you describe this? How would you summarize this video?
Well, I guess we're going to talk about magic squares and just, you know, theoretical ways to make them and what they could do. Right.
So I know, and I want everybody to be patient with me because I'm kind of a geek when it comes to this. I like getting into a little bit of the details. So what I talked Alexei into doing was being patient with me and helping me lay this out on an actual size model that we could literally build, right? So, Alexei, I'm going to say this is 3/4 inch plywood, okay? So, do you think that would be something I could get my hands on really easily? And then I'm going to make a group out of that.
Yeah, and I mean, if you really had to, you could make a box, you know, just kind of get a 2x4 and trim it up around the edge. And then put another layer on top of that, and then fill the whole thing with concrete if you even wanted to.
Say that again.
If you wanted to build it up a little bit, right? Because we want to stick some iron rods into this thing.
Oh, I was thinking about drilling, taking like a Forstner bit, wood bit, and drilling the holes in it.
Right.
But so this has got to be, so the squares have to be 6 inches, right? Because that's 4.
Well, we're gonna need to divide into 4 equal sections, depending on however big you make it.
So that's 6 inches. I can hit mine. And then, so basically, I need to actually go in here and edit this. Yeah. Well, here was my, you always have this plan, and your plan, your vision hardly ever works out the way you think it's going to work out, right? What I was hoping is that you could talk about concepts and help me think about dimensions while I'm doing this, so people wouldn't be bored. They probably want to hear more from you than me. But what I was going to do is put these squares on here. So the magic square, can you talk about the concept of the magic square? How we have these?
Well, let's see. I have a model on my screen. If you want me to pull that up real quick.
Yeah, let me go back and while I'm drawing that, and I will add yours to the stream.
What I did was I figured this would even be easier. I just opened up my book, The Fifth Dimension. So what you see right now on the screen is basically just a pegboard, right? And so this is kind of what Tony's drawing up right now, a simple 4x4 pegboard that you have iron rods sticking up in the middle of, right? And what we're going to end up doing is wrapping these with a specific number of coils, so that way when you run electricity through it, basically you're going to have non-uniform input because each rod is going to have a different number of coils, but on the outer edge, you're going to have a uniform output, right? So all those are going to add almost like throwing pebbles into water, but electromagnetically. And they're going to add to make one uniform wave on the outside, meanwhile making a vortex in the center. So that's kind of what we're drawing up right now.
Let me go back to mine just for a second.
Yep.
This is what's going to be fun about this. We can go back and forth. Did we decide on that like a 1/2 inch?
The rod?
And these could they be like conduits? In other words, they could be hollow, or do they need to be solid?
Well, I think solid's the best. And honestly, I think the bigger the better. How big is the grid, the entire size of your grid?
These are 4-inch squares.
Oh, well, that's important.
What's that?
I'm just thinking you'd probably want it to be at least a 1/4 of the square. So
well, I'm trying to think I know, but how am I going to get 2-inch diameter rods though?
You get those, from the steel guys over at Tampa Bay Steel. That's how we got. I'm
talking about the kind that don't cost $1 million.
Hey, you just get these rods, and But
yeah.
I don't think you'd want steel. You'd probably want more like solid iron. Something that's.
No, when I say steel, I'm talking about iron. Yeah,
exactly. Solid iron rods sound pretty
well.
good.
But again, I can cut steel or copper. You can't use copper.
There's what's the word? Diamagnetic versus magnetic, right? And so you want your material to be magnetic.
Oh, so you don't. So you're not just looking for something that's current can run through.
No. Well, so I don't know if you could honestly. I don't know if you could use diamagnetic. I think it would be safer using magnetic. So going with the iron core instead of.
Okay, right? So I'm just going to go on faith that I can find a 2-inch.
Basically, metals that aren't magnetic are diamagnetic, and so they create the opposite of the field that you're trying to create.
So you're right. We might have to pour some kind of lightweight. We might have to have an indention for these, and then pour some kind of concrete around.
So we build that box up, right? We make it like a 2-foot or a 1-foot-tall box, and well, if that's only 4 inches, it depends how big the whole thing is, right? I mean,
well, that's what we were. Yeah, that's what I was kind of getting to. What kind of scale? I'd like to make one that I can build easily to scale.
Let's imagine that's 4 foot by 4 foot.
Okay.
Just for drawing.
I'm not going to imagine it. I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it 4 feet. What is that connected to? Oh, I know what it's doing.
Well, because that would make it.
So all I gotta do is scale this up by 2, and we'll be at 4 feet.
Right. So now each one of those squares represents 1 foot, right?
Yes. So now I need to get rid of this thing. Let's see.
So that's like a 12-inch.
Let me explode this so I don't have to deal with all that.
What is that?
Oh, don't want to do that. But see now, that's why I want to see. That's a good example of why I want to start out with the right scale, because now that thing turned into a 4-inch cylinder when I scaled it twice.
Right. See, that's right. It doesn't. The rod diameter is important, but it also, all the factors are important. So the bigger rod you have, you could use a different current, so it all varies. Thinner rod, you need more current.
I know, but if I make this thing so that I have to use 480 volts or something, I ain't gonna be able to do it.
Well, that's just a couple car batteries.
That's 40. I said 480 volts.
That's just a couple lemons. All you need is a whole bunch of lemons.
Yeah.
And you wire them together. You can do it naturally.
So now, if we're going to use one, let's see, that would be that's the size, and then I'm going to bring them up 12. Well, they're not going to be that long, are they? They're not going to need to be that long.
Well, the biggest coil is 16 turns, so it really has to do with the thickness of the diameter of the coils. But that 16 is very general, right? That's 16 is a relative ratio of number of turns. So if instead of we use 1, if we use like 6 as our starting number, we need to use 6 times 16 for the 16 spot, right? So it's all relative as far as like number of turns. So,
well, yeah, I'm trying to make something I can actually build, right?
Well, within the affordable range, right? Like, kind of.
No, that's what I mean. So
yeah, exactly.
So
right now it's already pretty. I mean, what's affordable these days,
Well, not 2-inch iron rods, but we're just drawing here.
You could probably go to an old railroad site, like an old junkyard, and find railroad, and get the track. Right, that's metal. What's that? Steel? What are those made of? Those are probably steel, aren't they?
But those have that weird shape to them, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird shape. Now you got to deal with that.
So then what we would have is our coils. Let's see. Let me get this over here. I'm just going to bring this down. And I'm going to kind of do some of this kind of rough just to show, because I don't, I know people are going to get really bored if I do too much of this. But what I probably should have done was make the coil after. But I just wanted to demonstrate. So this is going to be.
I can show off these other concepts. I have them 3D printed. So right behind me, I have the.
Let me put you up on the. Oh, you want to do a screen share?
I was just going to show.
Okay, I can put you by yourself.
Okay, I'll talk a little bit just for fun, whatever.
Let's see. And then, oh no. Okay, good.
You lost me for a second there.
How do I put you by yourself?
We can do this.
Okay, I think that's as best I can do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me go to full screen there. Okay, so basically, what I have is a 3D printer, and you saw that I like to draw up random magic squares and stuff like that. And so these are just a couple concepts that are not working, but actually, well, I mean, this one works. So this is a magic square that you literally fill with water or any type of material. Okay, so you can basically, it naturally, based off of the manifestation of the matter that's going inside of it, naturally creates its own waves. So I was just thinking that maybe if you filled up some material with the proper ratios, it could have some effect. Just an idea, kind of messing around. And then here's another concept where basically I already printed a whole bunch of pegs, and I wired this up. I wrapped it up with the proper ratios. If you wanted to look at the numbers, you have 1. And then you can see the 1 goes to the 2, goes to the 3, goes to the 4. And then the wires wrap around the back on this model. But this is not working. I would need to have some metal pegs coming through there in order to make this an actual little handheld size working magic square. But then to go through the natural manifestation of matter in the universe, I went ahead and printed a series of pyramids as well. I don't have my biggest one with me, apparently. But you can see this is 4, right? 4 pyramids here. And then this one is 16 pyramids. And then this one is 64 no, 32 pyramids or 16. I don't know. I'd have to count. But basically, by stacking pyramids or stacking magic squares, you can also have effects, right? So there would also be one more big pyramid up here. So just some things I've been messing around with. I don't know.
One thing that just occurred to me is we didn't talk about the. Some people may not understand that the magic square, the reason it's magical is because of the numerology, basically, right? I mean,
that came to me like it's the whole like I studied astronomy in school, but now I'm talking almost astrology. I ran into magic squares based off of very, sound mathematical principles. Now it's going back to like that ancient stuff that you're talking about.
I don't mean like numerology as in magic. I'm talking about numerology as in each, like across, they add it to be 34, and down they add it to be 34.
So for that, I have my book ready for a screen share. Let me do that.
Okay, let me go back here.
And share screen window. My book's right there. Bam. Let me know when the book's up on the screen.
It's up. Yeah.
Okay. So basically, the magic square that we're mimicking here is this one that I have highlighted. Let me see. There we go. So basically, you can see all the numbers that are added. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. By adding it in this fashion, literally every vertical adds up to 34. Every horizontal adds up to 34. But this one's even more special because every 4 corner sets adds up to 34. So in this section, I have them all color-coded. You can see every horizontal, every vertical. And this square that I'm looking at right now, it's basically these two and these two add up to 34. The 4 in the middle add up to 34. The 4 corners and then the 2 opposite crosses. Right? Here you have the 2 X's and then the 2 diagonal sets add up to 34. So that's basically a perfect magic square, meaning the only thing that still manifests within our physical reality is the switching pattern of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, which ends up, so here I have them drawn out where you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, you can see 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13, 15, 16, or 14, 15, 16. And so when you kind of draw those all out, they make this pattern. And that's all that's left because everything else is canceled out, equaling a 34. And so when you look at that going through time, you see that it makes a scalar vortex, right? And so that's essentially how infinite creations can be made from the concept of a magic square. But what we're doing right now is basically making an electromagnetically powered square, which is something like this. And so doing this, you're able to actually warp space-time. It's almost like having a bucket of water and you're making a whirlpool with a bucket of water, but you're doing it electromagnetically with the raw energy of experience. And so therefore you can create energetic vortices that can stretch essentially the fabric of space-time and make potentially effects such as like time dilations, density control, meaning like levitation effects, and even potentially the telescoping of conscious experiences, because each conscious harmonic is related to a different flow of space. And so if you're standing inside one of those, literally your consciousness will be experiencing a different flow of space. So that's basically the concept behind magic squares. And, we're really just literally unlocking the potential behind them. And when it comes to craft that have been made with magic squares in the past, there was a man named John Searle. We've spoken about him in previous podcasts. And he basically used the concept of the magic square in order to make the Searle effect generator, which was the power source for his flying disc. So there's definitely something behind the magic squares.
And maybe one thing we could do to demonstrate this is, let me pull up. I'm showing that. Let me move this little coil. So what I did was I went ahead and put all the numbers, the relative, numbers in the corner of each quadrant or whatever.
Yep, that's perfect.
And so what you were talking about earlier is that the effect that you were talking about how that I wonder if is that the radius of it where it touches the corners?
Well,
Is that
I really think that depends on the amperage that we end up using, right? Like how big and where they end up meeting. I think it is going to be similar to there, and I think it has a lot to do with that one. Whatever we make that one is what everything else almost needs to match up to. But the one needs to be outside of its own radius, right? Because if you look at the two needs to be able to add to the corner as well, almost. So the furthest the two can, right? So I think that
I thought it was that I thought that well, the 16 is going to have the largest radius, right?
exactly 16 is going to have a huge one, but then when you look at the opposite corner, the 15 is right there as well as a 12. So the two, like the 15 and the 12, are going to be able to mimic the effect of the 16 almost.
So this is what we were talking about earlier before we started, is that we would have to know the radius of each of these.
Well, all the rods would be the same, and the
I meant the
way,
radius of the electromagnetic field.
So you have that equation that you found, right, for that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to show that off real quick, we can talk about that. You know, because that's really what it comes down to.
I thought you said you took a screenshot of it.
I took a photo on with my camera.
Because I remember it was H equals I times N over 2 pi R. That's what I remember in my head. Does that make sense?
H is equal to I times N over
2.
L. And then H is also equal to I over 2 pi R. But the one that we need is really for the coil of wire, which is like I times N divided by L, where L is the length of your coil, I is the current, and N is the number of turns. It's a very simple equation that'll just give us a general idea.
What I should have done, I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to put my center points back on here. And then we can get rid of the rods for a second and just draw some, if we just took 2 squares and did the math on them.
Well, because L is a constant in this equation, right? The length of the coil. Well, actually, no, L is not a constant. L is changing in every one of them. But by those
numbers, that's the length of the coil, not the length of the rod.
Right, it's the length of the coil. So in this equation, it's almost equivalent to the number of turns in a way, because if we say that the coil length, is directly related to the number of turns, and we're just kind of doing relationships and ratios. The length is going to end up being the same though for almost every. It's like it ends up being something we can almost just like toss out.
So what I was going to do is let me put this. I want to delete this. I'm going to delete this for a second. So if we just did one,
it's going to be a ratio.
One would be an easy math problem, right? So if we did, let's just say we had 12 volts, or you could do 48 volts, whatever. Because I want this to be something we can actually do.
Right.
So I'm not looking at the equation. What was it? I times N.
I times N divided by L is equal to H.
So I is 48 times N was the number of coils, 1.
So and let's 48. Make H equal to 34.
What's that?
Let's make H equal to 34.
Now that would be the radius. That's the radius, right?
Right. Never mind. So for that one, we have H equal to I over 2 pi R. So basically, you have
48. Let's see. I have to turn my iPhone sideways to get that kind of math done. Okay. Let's see. You have 48 times. Well, it's just 1 in this case.
I'm not sure if this is what we're looking for. Now that I'm looking
2. Oh, there it is. Squared. 3.1415. Dang, it sounds like. Wait a minute. That sounds like pi. 3.14159. See, we need a math whiz. That's why I thought Chris could help us. But then I'm saying, what are the units? Did I lose you again? Did I lose you again?
Oh, sorry. No, I'm here. I'm staring at this thing right here. I just don't like how it says. I think these are for different. I'm not sure.
Okay. I'm sorry. We had some technical difficulties before we started, and I thought that happened again. That was weird.
Right.
I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, it would be, if we knew the math, we could just draw, this value, and then we could draw this value and see how they overwrite. Well, I guess we could it's going to be relative, right? So if we just
that's what I was kind of getting at. It's all going to be relative in a way.
So if we said 1 is 1, and then we said this would be 60, that doesn't make any sense, does it?
That would be 15.
Oh, I was going 1 times 4. I was saying 1. That's a 6-inch radius. That's 1. So you're saying do 1 is the radius. Okay. Yeah. So that's 1. This is 15. This is 14. I don't want to lose my place here. 4.
Exactly. That's what I'm looking for.
Oh, that one. Oh, that's funny. That one ends up being. That's funny. That one ends up being there. Probably what I should have done was 7, 9. Oh, look, 8. Oh, look, that one that overlaps this one. 8, 10, 7. Yeah, I don't think I was trying to be too technical, right? I was trying to do the math on the current and all that, but really, like you're saying, it's going to be relative to.
Yeah, I think it's right now just for kind of for fun and for today or whatever, we can just do this, but this will give people a really good idea of what's happening. I just don't like the equation in this one because it says H here, but it doesn't give me the radius on the coil of wire method. It only gives me the radius on the straight conductor. So I'm not sure if it's appropriate to use H equal to H for a coil of wire, using this.
Well, and here, and my point is well, it's still going to be relative. I was going to say I know the electromagnetic field radius is going to be bigger, but it's still kind of relative, isn't it? I mean, so if we started here and then we went to here.
Yeah, and so what we need to do is add all of those. I don't think we made those big enough, right? Like realistically.
Well, that's what I was wondering. What are the units? Because I'm using inches as units.
Well, like a magnetic force is typically done with like what, a Tesla or something. I don't exactly know off the top of my head.
Yeah.
At this moment, I'd have to look into it a little bit.
Where'd my rods go? I turned them off. What was the other thing that I had that I thought was kind of neat was that. Let me go back to you now. Let me go back here. There's Vanessa Kitty out in the YouTube world. What was the electrogravitic blimp thing? What was that about?
Basically, you can use electrogravitics to kind of like manipulate the electric field that exists, or like the energy around an object. Basically, that means with electricity, you can manipulate gravity. Or like location rather, because it's not really manipulating gravity. It's more of like location manipulation is the way I think of it. Because you have you have energy coming from the outside, and if you create a lower voltage here versus a higher voltage here, basically you have like a voltage potential, and it shifts the things. And so let me just show you real quick what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just doing a simple Google search here called lifter technology. I'm pretty sure that's what they're called. Yeah. And I'll just go to these images. All right, so we can do a screen share at this point. Let's see. Let me do a stop share, do a new share for you. Bam, bam. All right, can you see this page?
Uh-huh.
So basically, a lifter in short is trying to find a good model, but basically this is a really good idea right here, where the bottom is really, really thin foil and the top is like a thin wire, right? So the surface
I've
area
seen these. Yeah, I've seen these. Yeah.
so it's all about the surface area, really. Like the surface area on the bottom side of the capacitor is way bigger than the top. And as the flow of electrons goes from one side to the other, it basically can create what they say like an ion wind at lower voltages within the atmosphere. But what people in the, you could say, unknown physics world say is that when you hit 1,000,000 volts, you actually do create a thing where you start altering the manifestation of it. Like it creates like a glow. And so
I
it's,
wonder what kind of voltage they're running through those that you see actually lift.
I forget off the top of my head. This, can you see this picture? This is the best thing
Uh-huh.
one of the best pictures that I've used that shows it. So like literally you have thin aluminum sheet, 200 millimeters, main electrode, negative pole, thin copper wire, positive pole, 30-millimeter gap, and then little balsa wood legs and balsa wood supports, right? Because you don't want any metal connecting the two. You want those to be connected with balsa. And
Plus,
then
it's lightweight.
yeah, balsa is like lightweight wood, makes decent structures for like toys and stuff. And yeah, then you run a current, you hook up one side and you hook up the other side. And let's see if he has more of that here. Just so you guys can see, I'm at linus.org/mirrors/ but here he's drawing up the whole thing.
You can copy if you copy the URL, I can put it in the chat.
I'll keep it open, that way we can do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what I was wondering, what kind of voltage is he running through?
Exactly.
That?
So here you can see your lifter is now ready for testing. You need only to connect your high voltage power supply, HV. I'm guessing that's high voltage,
High voltage.
30 to 40 kilovolts.
30 to 40 what?
You see it up here on the top?
No, I can't see. 30 to 40 kilovolts?
Yep.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
30,000 volts, 40,000 volts.
Yeah. So once you get to 1,000,000 volts is when the thing actually starts doing like real electrogravitics. At this point, from what I understand, you're basically making the ion wind. So like when you look it up and people kind of always debunk the electrogravitics, they say it's ion wind. It's because they're keeping their voltage under 1,000,000 volts. But like people like John Searle literally say like once you hit 1,000,000 volts, that's when you get electrogravitic. And that might just be what they're saying. I mean, I've never gotten to 1,000,000 volts on anything like this. I did 6,000 volts, but I didn't make it right one time, and I felt that.
Have you seen the? You reminded me of the new the thruster technology they're going to be testing on the DART, the satellite they're going to crash into the asteroid. It's an ion thruster. I don't know if you've
I haven't seen that, but it might be somewhere. I really don't know.
They're creating, with electricity, they're creating ion gas.
Right.
I guess it's is there hydrogen in there somewhere? Anyway, it's a solid. They're using solid fuels, and they're testing it for like smaller spacecraft. Like for the cubes.
Right. Yeah. No. I mean.
Anyway. Sorry, I didn't mean to go off. I didn't mean to go down a rabbit hole. I just when you said
I haven't looked into those.
When you said ion thruster, I was like, hey, I just read an article about that.
Yeah, I mean that's basically ion propulsion is what a lot of people say for for that system. The one that I just showed you is basically ion propulsion.
So apparently they were using like xenon before, but I guess it has to be carried in gas form, but the ion thrusters can be a solid type fuel. But anyway. That's interesting. I wonder where you would get a power supply like that. I guess you can order one.
The ones that we were just looking at? Yeah, I think so.
Huh.
I found a power supply that wasn't enough, but it was close. It came from one of those neon lights. You know what I'm talking about? Like a neon light.
I know. Yeah, I know the neon lights. I just never really thought about the power supply.
They've got like 6,000, 7,000 volts in them. But that's not. I don't think that's really what you want more than that. If you're actually going to do it right.
So the idea behind this, if I go back to this, the idea is that basically the coils produce this field. Electromagnetic field, right? And then neon transformer. Somebody in the comments.
Exactly, the neon transformer. That's funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
I shocked myself.
At that point, you shocked yourself.
Yeah.
I've shocked myself plenty times doing electrical work without turning breakers off like a dummy. But
I had it wired straight into a lifter like what you guys just saw, and I don't know if I was too close to it or it wasn't grounded properly or what, but when I pulled the string on it, I felt the shock, and I just unplugged the thing right away and kind of it's like it was good for now.
I don't know if you've ever done this. Have you ever asked the question, is this hot? And then you grab it and yes, that's hot.
It's kind of like that.
I did that once like a dummy. But I guess at some point these electromagnetic fields interact with each other, and you're saying they create some kind of vortex.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you go back to that sketch you had going, actually, where you almost had them looking like little drops of water, that's really the best way to show it. I think that we didn't draw those rings big enough, though. Honestly.
Well, let me turn these rods off. I'm just trying to figure out what scale would you use when you say they're not big enough? They're still like, this one's still going to be 15 times bigger than that one, right?
Yeah, but so that's why I'm wondering if this equation's proper here, because I don't know if it goes off, if it's a linear distance thing. I think it's more realistically, I think it's like r squared. So the force of the magnetic field should be like descending by r squared. That's why I don't know if I like this equation, but
yeah, we'll figure that out, and maybe when Chris gets to, we can all get together again and
actually pull out like the magnet book, and actually like look into it a little more, actually do, like you're saying, work out the details. You're trying to actually
who was it here? Tawili, is it Tawili or Tawili? He says he works in the electrical lighting field, neon shocks are not a joke. I guess they wouldn't be, because
No, they're not.
it'd be like a plasma shock.
No, it's not a joke.
So, what was I going to ask you though? We were talking about, because what's funny, here's the funny part. We haven't shown this yet. We were talking about making one big enough you could put a phone booth on top of it, right? So
yeah, I mean that's the plan.
But I feel like we need to test this thing, at some scale. Maybe it doesn't work on a smaller scale.
Honestly, I really don't know. I think it comes down to, in quotes, playing with it a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know that. I was going to repeat what he said, but it's dirty language. One of you electrical guys out there in the chat, what we're trying to figure out is the mathematical formula for these. You've got your numeric values in each square, right? These add up for somebody who just showed up. Across this way adds up to 34, and down adds up to 34. So this is a magic square, right? In that respect, it's a magic square. So did you basically come up with this idea, Alexei?
No. At the end of the day, magic squares are basically extremely ancient, and they're even the foundation of human language.
No, I'm talking about with the coils, with the
coils, yeah. But yeah. I mean, I think that the coils might have already been done somewhere else before. I don't think it's a unique thought.
Well, I had never seen it until I met you, so that's the only reason I was asking.
I've seen coils in a yard before, which made me start thinking about it a little bit more. So
I just wonder. We were talking about, you can take a battery and have a big loop of wire and run it to the other end. But if that loop is too short and there's not enough resistance, it'll burn. The battery will overheat, right? You'll have an overcurrent. So I wonder if you started out with a length of wire and you came and you wrapped one here, and then you went down to 2, and then 3, and then 4. I was just trying to give the concept to anybody that's watching now. 4 coils, then you go, where's number 5? But none of these can really touch each other, right? Because you would be shorting it, like.
Right, you wouldn't want the wires touching,
Right.
Definitely.
So
that's why, just to get an idea, if you have it made of concrete, you can literally run the wires through the concrete base as well. Something like, what I'm saying, like web it through on the bottom.
The concrete's so permanent, though. It's scary, because it's like, if it didn't work, you're like, oh man, I screwed that up.
Right. No, you're right when you say that. But yeah, you could run it underneath or run it around. Just like hold it with, like, hold the wires in place.
But eventually you're going to end up with, the coil coming from number 16, and then then you're going to have a battery over here. Well, right?
That's where you put a light bulb after 6.
So yeah, so that's your resistance, is the light bulb.
Yeah, or something.
You could figure out some way to create a resistance in here besides just. Because that was my question to the electrical geniuses out there. How much wire does it create? How much wire does it take at a certain gauge to create enough resistance so that you don't burn your battery, shorting it out like that?
And then even when you, you'd have to definitely figure that out. But
let's see if one of those guys out there.
You have some electrical guys watching right now.
You're doing some electromagnetism. You're making a transformer with those coils. Not really. You're not making a transformer because they're individual coils. You're making you're making 16 small transformers.
Individual electromagnets.
Yeah. Making you'd be making 16 individual little transformers. Too well I. I'm a journeyman electrician, but I think this stuff is out of my pay grade. Well, yeah, I think I'm finding out it's out of my pay grade too.
No, just general insight here,
Yeah, it's
I
fun.
think
We're kind of doing this for fun, but
so. I would consider them more electromagnets, you know, and what's more important is to think of the magnetic field at a certain distance, as you know, as opposed to think of it as like a transformer. Just think of it as a giant electromagnet, and then like each one's almost like, you know, throwing a stone into the pond of electromagnetism that we live in.
electromagnetic magnets are commercially, yeah, but we're trying to build one, John. She's saying they're commercially available. Well, yeah, but they're not available. Let me show this. I'm going to show your. Where's my thing? They don't. You can't buy them like this.
Here, let me show you how it's wrapped. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's wrapped in a unique pattern where like you know, the top one is one loop, and then it goes here, if I can count it out. So like this, 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, so it's got a certain pattern to it. I'm so bad at
Right.
holding things in place. And then 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, and it goes all the way up to
So
16 doing that. And then, you know, 13, 14, 15, 16.
on the working model, that would be bare conductors, though, right?
Yeah, well, at least around where the rods are at. Everywhere else, you'd want to minimize any other type of like.
Well, that's true. You could leave the insulation on the wire where they're crossing, right?
Yeah, definitely. You wouldn't want
Yeah.
to. You would want as minimal interference from the wires in those sections. You know, you'd want to have these be like basically iron rods. You'd want to have these be nice thick wires.
Here's you some real
electric.
math. Okay, here's some real funky math. Because you know on DC current, it loses strength over the length of a cable or wire
Definitely.
conductor, right?
Yep.
So then the distance between those, I wonder how that takes. That's where AC current would come in handy.
Well, that also plays into the thickness of your wire, right? The amount of resistance over the distance. So the thicker your wire, the less resistance you have over distance.
Transformers are wire coated. Yeah, they have to be. And that's kind of why, that's what I was asking about. How do you keep from shorting out your battery? I guess you'd have to have some kind of diode. It just came to me, diode, the word diode. If you had a diode, how would you keep from, we were talking about a device that would keep, you would just need something to create some resistance, like you were saying, a light bulb or something.
Yeah, just put a
You could
microwave
put the
on it.
light bulb right before one end of the battery, I suppose.
Yeah, and then like we were saying too, maybe just not sure if it's better to have a constant current going through it or to constantly kind of like flicker the voltage through it.
I wonder if those power supplies, like the one you saw there, have the capability of doing that. In that photograph,
Right.
for the lifter.
That would just be some type of, you know, step in between. Be pretty simple.
So then, if you built one of these and it works, what do we expect it to do?
It depends on which direction you're pointing it. If it's upside, you know, so basically it's density
Away from me.
Well, okay, so we're talking about. Let me pull up this this drawing from the book. Actually, it'll help. Let's see.
Bob Marley says hi from Ireland.
Hello.
Bob Marley.
It has to be
the ghost of Bob Marley.
Let's see.
I'm from Ireland. My family's from there, county of Clare. Bob Marley. I think Bob Marley was he Jamaican? Or was he?
I'm pretty sure.
Or did he just pretend to be? He just seemed like a Jamaican.
I don't know. Earth. I'm gonna say he's Earthling.
Oh, let me add that to stream. Okay.
So this is a rundown of the Fifth Dimension book, and you were just talking about what do we expect to happen here. And so the reason why we're working with the magic square is because after you kind of look at all this information right here, you could almost say that our universe, I'm not saying that our experience of the universe is flat, But I'm saying from a fifth dimensional aspect, our universe is flat, right? And what we're experiencing is a fourth dimension. So if you call this center drawing here, let me make this bigger. So if you can consider this all of our universe, or our perception. So this is our perception orbiting a greater center with an acceleration towards center at light speed. We're flying tangential. So basically our reality is being stretched into existence based off of our accelerative reference frame, right? The universe is expanding as a perception being stretched and crunched. And so what we're talking about is using the raw energy of experience, right? So if this is happening here, then this is your now moment. And basically you can see energy is crunching as you approach a spot, energy stretching. As you leave, everything reverts back to normal. And so basically you have this happening for every single particle and every single wave of energy of light that we experience is literally
I want to ask you a question before I forget, because every time we talk about this, I forget to ask you this.
Right.
Why can't it be both? Why can't the physical, because see, my thing is, I think there's a physical universe, and then there's a what we consider the metaphysical universe. Why can't the universe, the physical universe, be expanding in in its reality, and then as we perceive it, it's also that part that we perceive expands.
It could be, right? So
because that would explain why you can sit with a telescope and measure the distance between galaxies and
so that
see
would be
that
a
they're
perception.
literally expanding. I'm sorry, what?
It's hard to describe. What I was trying to get at though is that this is pretty much what's happening right here. Is like perception is being stretched based off of our accelerative reference frame. And this is a function of distance away from the center of this vortex of energy right here. But so that's, as you get closer to center, your universe would be stretching and expanding. The distances between matter and light, matter would be becoming more dense, like is what we see in black holes, and the universe would be stretching more and more. But so what I was trying to say is that at the same time, you have a natural order to things, and there is a fifth dimensional vortex of energy. And so if our universe is some type of actual energy, then there would be a strive towards the common velocity, right? So there would be a normal expansion within this fifth dimension, but also we have the stretching of our perception. So I'm not going to say it's all stretching perception. It could also be our universe expanding as it orbits through the fluid of time, trying to have like the edges have that same velocity, right? Because at the boundary conditions, velocities of fluids want to match. So you would have like a natural stretching of the universe as it orbited through time. But then as perception got closer and closer to the center, you would also be undergoing a greater gravitational field, which would also give you a bigger stretching of perception. So I would say both things are actually happening.
That makes me feel better because I feel like that's more practical. I'm kind of a nuts and bolts guy.
Right. I mean, I feel like that's more real. Like that's probably the most practical way to look at it, is that both are occurring.
Yeah. Did you see while you're talking about the fifth dimension? I was thinking about Rather Be Squidding's latest video about.
I don't know if I caught that one.
He and I don't know if we can look at it or not, but he's talking about part of our brain that may actually exist in the fifth dimension.
Interesting.
And that might be able to operate or be aware of or.
Well, I was thinking of I don't know if he talked about this, but a very similar thing I've been thinking about is actually how there's the reptilian part of the brain, there's the other part of the brain, and I think that each one could be related to a certain time of animal evolution. And that humans, what he's saying is if we have some type of fifth dimensional organs, which is probably the pineal gland, I don't know though, I didn't see his video. But if we do have fifth dimensional organs, it's one of the most advanced organs that beings have as far as animals on Earth, right? Is that related? I mean, I really couldn't tell you.
I was
I didn't see it.
gonna try to go to that one, maybe that one part just to show.
But so what we were talking about, I guess, is what the magic squares do in this field of energy, right? Is what we were getting at. Did you want to finish that real quick?
I was just going to show it to you right quick, just if you don't
All right,
care.
all right.
Just to window. Where's rather me squinting? Here we go. Is that showing up? Oh, here we go.
You want me to do the stop share? No, you've got it. It came up. There it is.
Yeah, okay.
As it enables us to consider different possibilities simultaneously, essentially upgrading our mental processing power.
Wait a minute.
Instead of moving my arm there, a little part of my brain, all of our brains, parts undetectable except through inference of brain activity, exist in this dimension. If Tozzi's and Peters are correct, our brains evolved into this fourth dimension as it enables us to consider different possibilities simultaneously. Essentially.
So I didn't want to play the whole video, but I thought that was interesting.
I'd have to watch more of that to properly comment.
Yeah, I know. I'm bad about I'm bad about interjecting little bits of things and not having them totally explained.
Well, I couldn't really say much. I know that there's nanotubules that are associated with thoughts, and that those are, I didn't see that video. I would have to watch that to talk about it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, and the reason it rang a bell in my brain is because of my dreams. The way I have the different dreams that I can tell that some are acting on a different, like, I have normal dreams, and then I have these other, what I call events, that seem to be acting in a different manner. And whenever I watch videos like that and I hear these things explained, it makes a lot of sense to me, because those dreams that I call events are a lot more, I guess they're almost, it's basically reality instead of dream. I can tell when I'm in a dream, like a
right, and it's not a lucid dream.
Yeah,
right?
It's not a lucid dream though. It's hard to explain, because I've had lucid dreams.
Right.
I've also had those experiences where you could see almost like photographs on the back of your eyelids, in
right.
color, like that. But anyway, if you get a chance, watch Rather's video.
Pretty interesting.
And he's a scientific, he's one of those, guys that tries to have the science to back up, what he's positing. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
But I guess, so when you talk about, or when other people talk about the fact that, some people think that we create reality as we go, or our own perception of reality is created as we go.
Right.
And you have people who think that we're actually creating bits and pieces of the world around us as we go. And I just think that the physical world exists, and that the physical and what would we call, not the spiritual, what would we call it, consciousness, that level of reality exists. It's co-planar. What is that? You know what I mean? They coexist. They're not. It's not one or the other. People want to draw a line in the sand and say, no, it's this or that. It doesn't have to. It doesn't have to be this or that. It can be a combination of things.
What's very interesting is that our consciousness is connected to our bodies, right? And when we dream, it's like we have different bodies almost, we're in different places. And almost even when you experience the fast gamma, you have different, almost in quotes, bodies. So it's almost like there is the physical realm. And then you could say that there's metaphysical realms on both sides of those when it comes to conscious experience. But that's where I don't necessarily 100% agree with that, because at the end of the day, it really is perception and then energy equals reality, right? It's like we have perception plus energy, and then we get our reality. I'm not saying that matter isn't different than light. I'm just saying that at the most fundamental principle, matter and light are made of the same energy. So we have, perception, and then we have relative motions or happenings rather, and then you have your physical that gets created.
I just feel like I feel like the universe is a stage and our consciousnesses are the actors that come and go on the stage. That's kind of how I feel. And, that's the way I look at it. I believe that there is a physical universe that exists whether I do or not. And it's like the fabric of that we all, it's like the playground it's like the sandbox we all play in, right?
Right. Well, I mean, I've got this open right here. I can just, so like, as far as the way basically what I was getting at is like, you have basically our entire thing is a black hole of energy orbiting into a point, right? Is what I'm saying. And then you have the different rings of perception based off of your conscious harmonics. But what I was trying to say just now is that it's more like we have the beta alpha state is more of that solid physical realm. And so for this, I'm going to show a different photo actually. So basically, okay, so we have, you just kind of remember this photo right now, right? That's in the center. And then I'm going to open up a different file real quick. This will show you what I'm talking about, where there's the physical realm, but your consciousness is kind of like, I haven't written this out fully, so it's hard for me to 100% properly show, but you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. So stop share screen, bam. So can you see this screen now?
Yeah.
So basically, you could almost say, this picture I use for a lot of different things, but you could say if you wanted to relate this to our daily orbit of consciousness through density, you could say that our bodies are in this constant laminar blue area, like our physical body, the physical realm that you're talking about. But then you have your consciousness is literally orbiting out here into dreamland. And then when you're inside the green area, it's more like fast gamma verse land, like near-death experiences. So basically, consciousness is kind of like goes into dreamland, but your body stays in the nice orbit. So you have realms of spirit, almost like you're saying, like a spirit realm, and then also a physical realm, right? That's kind of
and I like that model because it kind of, we all like what goes along with what we think, right?
No, I mean, that's how I would relate it to that. And that's really,
yeah.
So I'm going to do a stop share and then another new share real quick, just so you can see what I'm talking about again. Or because you've already seen this with the book. But this is, I'm pulling out the book again. And this is when I do the orbit of consciousness through density. And so if you relate, your orbit of consciousness through density with that one physics of love drawing, you see that how you're like your consciousness goes into the delta realm, but your body's not manifesting there. It's your body's physical. But then your consciousness kind of reattaches at the beta alpha harmonic distance, right? You see what I'm saying there? Is that making sense?
Yeah, I think so.
So like your consciousness has this orbit through density, but not your body.
Right.
Like
this that's an odd-shaped orbit. How did you come up with that?
It's basically so it could have either been one big circle, but you have to switch through alpha and beta several times. And so literally when I mapped it and tried to keep it a smooth arcing path, I had to wrap through the center.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and so then I came back out, and then it's like big loop, tight loop, big loop, tight loop.
It's tic-tac shaped.
Right. It's not only tic-tac shape, but I want to relate this to another screen share. I'm going to pull this up real quick because people are going to think this is pretty cool. At least I think it's pretty cool. But I'm going to show a gyroscope processing. I'll find the right video first, though. Gyroscope, Christmas lecture. Yeah, this is actually like it blew my mind when I
stop being fat. Harvard Medical School has discovered.
Let me mute that real quick.
This breakthrough uses the caffeine in your coffee.
Let me see if it actually does the video I want to see. It'll take me a second. I don't know if you want to talk about something else real quick, but I'll find this video pretty quick.
Well, I like this blending of sort of, I don't know what, I hate to use the word spiritual world because I feel like that people, they get too hung up on the word. We need a word that is like let's say the physical part of consciousness instead of saying, because like spiritual it has too many connotations, right? To like on earth, people think spiritual means you're either, a Buddhist or a Hindu or a, whatever. That's not the spirit world. That's not the spirit world I'm talking about. I'm just talking about the sort of the non-physical.
I've removed the word spirit from my books. Well, not really. I mean, on the cover, I have mind, body, spirit diagram, but that's because I think it's important for people to understand that spirit is light state harmony. Like when you say light state harmony, I feel like that makes more sense. It's literally like your quantum electromagnetic state in relationship to the electromagnetic state of the incoming universe.
Now, what I mean is, in your book puts it into context.
Right.
When you're having a conversation, it's hard to put it in. When you say spiritual, it's hard to put it into context without a long, drawn-out discussion about it. Right. I wish there was a new word like UAP. I wish there was a new word for spiritual that we could just say, okay, let's get past all of your preconceived notions about spirituality. And then we have this word that, we can talk about.
I see what you're saying. Like UAP is kind of a new term because UFO was too woo-woo, right? So
yeah. Or it had too much stigma or whatever attached to it or whatever.
But let me show you. Okay, so right here you can see this orbit, right? This erratic orbit on the computer screen. So I'm going to do
still looking at the.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So I'm going to do a stop share. I'm going to show a new share real quick. So do you see YouTube?
Yes, I put it up.
All right. Mm-hmm. So now this is a gyroscope processing on a string. All right.
With Alice through the looking glass, a sort of dream, in which, at the same time, we followed Faraday and tested it experiment by experiment. Did his quest really fail? I wonder. Let me send you away with this experiment and Faraday's words. All this is a dream. Nothing is too wonderful to be true.
So just watch the orbit. Tight loop,
no words that I can
big loop.
To better those.
Tight loop, big loop.
So you've actually got two orbits there, right?
Tight loop.
You got the one that is
big
doing
loop,
locally,
right? You see
and
what I'm
then you have
talking
a
about?
bigger one.
I couldn't really hear you, but do you see what I'm talking about there?
Yeah, I was asking, it looked like you had an orbit that the overall assembly was doing, but then you had a local orbit the gyro was doing.
Well, that's exactly
or was that just something the way I perceived it?
That was something that gyroscope was just doing, where it literally has one big orbit. If you were to look at what it just did from a bird's eye view, it would have had one big orbit and then one tight orbit. and then a big orbit and a tight orbit.
Right. Oh, that's what it was. I was perceiving it as like two independent orbits, like the gyro had an orbit, but then the overall assembly had its own.
And I didn't actually talk about that aspect of it in the book, but you're probably right there, where like the two synchronize, and that's where that motion just now of the gyroscope literally has no momentum associated with it. And so that's where it's like the precession of a gyroscope is literally related to the manifestation of the matter that creates it. And you could, so like,
because the way that the gyroscope is able to hold its position is because the energy is spent keeping it in that in that configuration.
well,
You're saying there's no momentum, but the momentum is used keeping it 90 degree, perpendicular to the vertical.
Oh, that's where there's a lot of discrepancies when it comes to the physics behind spinning tops and gyroscopes.
Yeah.
There's not one good explanation for why a gyroscope rises when you force precession. There's not one good explanation why a gyroscope literally shows no momentum if you stop the precession, right? Like the dude stands there and he goes over it like detail for detail, and he's like talking about.
Oh no, but there's momentum in the spinning of the gyro.
Well, that's just physicists making up terms. Then they don't actually know what's happening. They're really like, how can you explain the center of gravity rising? I mean that's.
No, I'm just saying if you have a mass that's spinning, then it has kinetic energy, I guess, right?
Well, yeah, I mean that's again like what layer of physics are you using? Are you using that things have momentum, or are things being manifested from the fifth dimension into our fourth dimension? Right? Like if you want to say it's just momentum, mv is mv, that's fine. But that's not really what's happening. Like you have matter being manifested from the incoming light state, and that the momentum is literally the past of the object and the future of the object. And so that's why it creates that, in quotes, momentum. It's the synchronization of the spinning in relationship to the quantum field. That's why I really do think you can map the entire quantum world by using different densities of gyroscopes, because each one is being manifested from a different density of experience and will have a different rate of rotation.
I wonder what is the effect that gravity has on if you took that same gyroscope or that same example that he was using and do it on Mars or the moon, would still.
Are you saying would it precess more or less? That is a good question.
Yeah,
that's a really good
gravity.
Question.
So
I haven't looked into that at all, honestly.
It's interesting. The whole thing is interesting, and it's kind of funny how people do get into these sort of almost debates about the gyros.
They do, and also the spinning top physics, right? Like, why does a spinning top want to always orientate itself to the direction of the force? It's just people try to say, oh, it's pushing on the ground and the friction gets it to stand. But that guy, Eric Leithwit, he puts the spinning top on a piece of ice, and then he's like, there's no friction. It's like, how are you?
Yeah, and you've got people who take it to the nth degree. Well, if you look down there, small enough, there's.
I know, exactly.
The point.
And forth. And I mean, how do you really ever prove it? And I think that's where it comes into over unity systems that are being developed right now. Have you heard about over unity and how you can use gyroscopes, and when you force precession, so say a gyroscope is precessing around a rod, right? And you force it to go faster, it literally rises in the dimension. In our physical world, it rises against gravity. Now, say you put a piece of wood over the top of it and you don't let it rise. So you force the precession, and so it naturally wants to rise, but you have a piece of wood over it. What happens is that gyroscope will start smashing the wood super violently and destroy your machine. That's called an over unity system. And so people try to use those to get energy out of them. And literally in that book, The Physics of Love, I talk about how there's that energy of synchronization like the energy of matter synchronizing with the incoming light state of the universe. And I think when you force precession, you push objects out into further out in density, right? So they rise within our physical reality. And when you put a piece of wood over it, you're literally not allowing it to synchronize with its own matter. And so that's that 1/2 MCR equation that I introduce as far as like the amount of energy in gyroscopic precession and over unity systems. So that's like where that whole the synchronization of the creation of matter itself comes into the gyroscopic precession, and also your consciousness perceiving reality. Like there really is, quite a bit going on.
Yeah, no, this is where I become a bad host because my brain slips off into those dreamy areas of what you're talking about.
Well, that's where I kind of just
I try to imagine myself in those realities. And I'm like,
Yeah, I mean, I talk about it a little bit more in the book. If you want me to do a quick share, or
yeah, I was going to say before we go this time, I keep forgetting to do this. I'm gonna talk about how people can get your book because I think it's so cool. Yeah, so don't let me forget that.
Well, we can do that at the very end, I guess. But I wanted to share, I guess, a couple more pages from it.
Oh no, yeah, sure, go ahead. There we go.
I'm really bad at keeping it secret. Like I literally have, a lot of the book read, and then walkthroughs of it all on YouTube. It's for free. It's free. It's for everyone. But if you want to support and buy the book, you're more than welcome to. But so what we were just talking about was the gyroscopic precession in relationship to your consciousness. And so basically, I didn't actually end up drawing any pictures for it, but I wrote about it. But you can basically, it just shows that the natural gyroscopic precession is very interesting, because there's no momentum. But when you force precession, you notice that you can make great energies. As you force precession, the radius of orbit changes. So the way I see it is when you force precession of a gyroscope, you're literally forcing it to drift further in this dimension. In the dimension of density. I feel like that's where you're forcing it to drift further out in, and the resultant manifestation within our perception is it rising relative to gravity.
Are you using density as in that's just basically where matter exists? When you say greater density?
Well, so our entire experience from this model is one giant black hole. I'm trying to get to that. So like basically,
the precession to the center or the
right. So as energy spirals towards the center of a black hole, you get overlapping of energies. And as the energies overlap at certain distances, you're basically equal to the speed of light or factors of the speed of light. And that's when you get matter manifesting, like bits of matter coming in from different densities of experience, because you have a vortex of energy, but then you have a perception. And so our perception is related to the vortex of energy. And so you get energy from the inner rings, energy from the outer rings, right? And so the energy from the inner and outer rings of perception add together. And that's what I'm saying, is that literally matter is being manifested from the inner and outer rings of perception. And you get this wall of experience, as in that's related to your conscious harmonics. And so when it comes to matter, like the smallest atoms are coming from the most center point of this entire vortex. I think that answered what we were just talking about.
And so I guess people, I guess the whole argument, that Stephen Hawking they were going back and forth, because you made the analogy of a black hole. What you're saying is that matter could be being born in that sort of atmosphere.
That matter only exists in black holes, and that consciousness only is created in black holes, because you need that overlapping of light upon itself to create a 5D multiverse experience where literally matter is being manifested, like blipping in and out of solidity. Like how else would you get matter blipping in and out of solidity?
Yeah, I almost wondered at one point, this was years ago, I thought maybe black holes were maybe the source of matter bleeding from other universes or something.
Well, okay, so I really like what you just said, and so I'm going to open up the book, The Fifth Dimension. I'm going to close this. I'm going to stop share real quick. No, this is The Fifth Dimension. I'm going to open up the book, The Infinite Pool of Experience and Awareness, because that one has what you basically just said, and how that relates to that other drawing, The Physics of Love, and how our entire experience is like a flower blossoming towards a greater sun within the sixth dimension. It's quite wild, but let me get that going real quick.
While you're doing that too, I was just going to say this book is this volume is interesting because it has is it 5 or 6 books in one volume and it's kind of cool. It's laid out where you can kind of go through a guide in the beginning, and it kind of gives you a guide to all the different books. It appears like it's one book, but it's actually
it's the 5 books of physics, in quotes, physics/metaphysics, but it is very physics based off of relativity and modern physics, and then a book of poetry, and then a section of philosophical discussions.
I like the poetry section too. That's cool.
Yeah, thank you. I feel like it helps because not everybody is so scientific based. Not everybody likes the charts, and some people can enjoy the poetry.
Well, we still have to remember that we can, even if we aren't, even if it turns out we aren't spiritual beings, we can still, what's the word? Wish to be.
I like that. I mean, if it makes us better people and it creates more harmony on the earth, why not?
Yeah, exactly. I'm supposed to be screen sharing it on here. Let's see.
Yeah, but basically, that almost relates to like what Lou Elizondo always talks about, how you have like science is coming at it from this direction, religion's coming at it this direction, but it's a pyramid and they meet at the top, right?
Right.
I'm not saying this is the answer to that. I'm saying this is very close to the top of that pyramid, right? Something similar to this is going to be where we're headed. And like when people talk about the age of the Aquarius, they're talking about literally the quantum realm of like liquid manifestations. And I literally named the second book in this one, The Liquid Light State Universe. So it is very, very related. And I have the mind, body, spirit diagram and how that relates to your quantum manifestation in our universe, right? So it's and it talks about multiple timelines and hitchhikers, from different dimensions. So it covers a lot, but, sorry, I'm babbling, but let me. No,
it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel like this is the direction of where that is going, But so we were talking about how you just mentioned black holes look like they kind of come, our energy isn't a black hole, but then it kind of came from somewhere else, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's literally, right, the conclusion, you could say, of the entire book is right here. And I really enjoy reading this, if you don't mind.
No, go ahead. All
right. So this is basically, with our new understanding of the infinite pool of experience and awareness, we may see that our entire universe is blossoming like a flower into the sixth dimension. When we look at the flow of primordial energy from the perspective of the sixth dimension, we see it as part of a growing structure. Our universal experience is the result of energy flowing into a black hole. In our experience, we see the spark of new conscious experiences as energy flows into the black hole of every galactic center. We are one part of a structure that is growing into the sixth dimension. We are the harmonizers of that structure. Through love and synchronization, we flow like a river into the next layer of experience as it branches out like water in a lake heading out to sea, or like a flower blossoming towards the sun. We are the water of the 1/6 dimension, the dimension inwards to where an electron is the universe. We flow like water, we are water, and we are time. We are all one, right? So I feel like that's exactly what you were just saying. Like we're literally, our energy comes from a black hole. Yeah. You get what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
And then we fractal out into another one. And so that is literally, let me just do this. That's the premises of the entire next book that I'm pretty much done writing, but I haven't finished.
Have you titled it yet?
Yes. Oh, I don't have it open. 1 second. Let me cancel that screen share and do one thing. And then I'll do a screen share.
This is an interesting comment from Bob Marley out there. He says the more they don't tell the truth, the more people are going down rabbit holes. I don't think our government knows the actual truth. I think they have bits of. I think they have record of experiences that people have had. It's like with the UAPs. They're having all these experiences with their pilots seeing UAPs, but they don't necessarily know what the UAPs are. So going down the rabbit holes are just a way for us to get together, just like Alexei and I are, and just discussing possibilities, you know. But I'm sorry, go ahead. I just wanted to. I feel like sometimes I don't address comments in the.
No, I mean, that's good. And like when it comes to rabbit holes, I feel like if you don't explore your universe, you know, I'm not saying like go down every rabbit hole, be blind, or like, you know, and then like end up, I don't know, like down some rabbit hole where your head's stuck and you don't have no way out. You need to be like aware of reality, right? And like still like actually look at reality. It's just like blindly go down a rabbit hole just doesn't make sense.
I think as long as you know you're going down the rabbit hole and you're in the rabbit hole, it's okay. It's when you go down the rabbit hole and you lose and you've lost track that you are in a rabbit hole. That's the danger. No, we went down many rabbit holes today, but we came back to, you know, we pulled ourselves out.
We pulled ourselves out. We live in, you know, our physical. Well, I mean, I don't know.
I don't mean to call. I'm not calling your work a rabbit hole. The reason I wanted to address the comment is because of that fact. I don't think necessarily that some of the things that some people imagine are rabbit holes, because I don't think it's like the one reason I always wanted to meet Alexei is because I feel like he has a unique perspective that I've never heard before, and it can't be totally wrong, right? I mean, everything you're saying can't be right. I don't think it can.
From my opinion, everything that I'm saying is absolutely true to me. I don't think that any physicist will really argue though with what I'm saying either. That you have a perception, and then you have a field of energy, and then our experience is a manifestation of our perception in relationship to the field of energy. I don't think any physicist is going to argue that we live in a quantum reality where matter
those are like night and day statements. You can
I
say.
I don't think any physicist is going to argue the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, where there's the whole energy distance momentum energy relationship. I don't think any physicist is going to argue the fact that one revolution creates one wave of electromagnetic energy. You know,
As a matter of fact, it just occurred to me that physicists would be less likely to argue your points than the ones I was making earlier about how I feel like there's a consciousness realm and a physical realm, and they're made, you know what I mean? That kind of stuff is what they would argue. It wouldn't be they wouldn't argue with you about what you're saying.
No, and like my approach is very, very realistic. We live in a quantum reality. Like we have the orbit. Why would we be orbiting the center of time? I don't know. Why are we orbiting a galaxy? So like it comes down to that's just the nature of reality. We are on Earth and we orbit Earth. Our Earth is in the solar system and it orbits the solar system. Our solar system is orbiting a galaxy, but that's where now our perception is being stretched because the velocity and the acceleration is so fast on that next step. It's literally now our perception is being stretched because we have an accelerated reference frame towards a greater center. Like we're literally, you know, spiraling around in circles.
And some astrophysicists or whatever don't even understand what holds galaxies together. Right. There's not enough gravity in that system to basically keep it a spiral, right? So there's other forces involved that we're just not aware of.
They're not looking at the universe as if it is orbiting something. They're looking at that our perception, which means that the relationship of the matter that makes me is a relationship of the matter that makes the wall. Like literally, when I say the beta waking state, it's the beta waking world. It's literally the relationship. What do we got here? Skinwalker and all of us, this UFOs at one time, lol. Just keep it simple.
Well, I don't think we're not talking dino beavers here.
Yeah, it's okay. But anyhow, you get what I'm saying, man.
Yeah.
Like,
I want Bob to understand though that just because you don't, it's taken me interviewing Alexei like 5 or 6 times to even understand some of the things he's talking about. Once you start to think about it, you say, "Oh, it's not Skinwalker Ranch territory." It's just simple physics, like you were stating.
It's actually very straightforward physics
Yeah.
in relationship to your human body. Like there's nothing in my opinion, there's nothing woo-woo about it until you start getting into the whole like pacing about the golden spot and the Fibonacci. But I don't even think that's woo-woo, because you do have a natural node of manifestation based on the preparation of space through that density of the how your body.
I think it goes back to actual words, because it's like when you say the word manifestation, our human brains have a perception itself of what we think manifestation is. We think of ghost when we think of manifestation.
So when I say manifestation, right, I mean anything physical, anything right, in our physical reality. And the mind, body, spirit diagram, that's body. Literally, a manifestation is body. Right. So there's the mind, body, spirit diagram. And then you have mind, which is literally the conscious field. And then you have a spirit, which is the relationship of your body to the conscious field.
And the point I was trying to make with that about words is that when I'm reading this book, I take words at the value, at the context as they are placed in this book. If you use the word manifestation here in this book, I'm smart enough to know the context of it. If I'm reading a ghost story book and I hear the word manifestation, it has a different context, right? So I think people need to keep that in mind when you're talking to Alexei. I keep saying Alexei.
I don't mind it. I like it. It's more, it's good.
Then I know how to take the word spiritual. I know how to take the word spirit. I know how to take the word manifestation.
Well,
all of that.
I lived with a roommate that just always believed spirit doesn't exist. When you die, you're dead. I'm an atheist. And I was like, okay, well, do you believe in light state harmony? That your body has a quantum reality? Do you believe in that? Okay, you don't believe in spirit and ghosts. That's fine. Do you believe in the quantum nature of reality? Do you believe that there's an incoming energy field and that you are made of an energy field? Do you think that there's a relationship between the two? It's like, okay, you don't believe in God. Yeah. Okay, do you believe in a greater laminar flow, as in like bigger than our universal experience?
That's the conversation. We need to get to that point. I feel like once we get to the point to where we can talk about spirituality in that context, then we'll all be better off, and we can stop talking about religions, which are institutions on earth.
Well, they're used for so much division, like you just said.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you're getting at. Is like they're used as structured. Like it's not really. I don't know. We're good.
No, I just as I'm thinking, as you're talking and we're going along, I'm thinking of how people respond and how, at some point, if humanity's ever going to progress, that we have to get rid of all of our notions of politics, hate, whatever, all of those, racism, all of those concepts are the way we think. We have to kind of get them out of our mind and start a blank slate, Yeah.
Having those types of constructs in your head just really doesn't help you in any way throughout your life. I mean, like, why even teach it to people?
Oh, and I know Bob Marley's saying no disrespect. I know, and I was just using your comment as a springboard to bring up my point. I wasn't trying to attach that to you, Bob. I was saying, I think it brought up the point to me
and I meant no disrespect as well. I meant more just like, I almost want the scientific community to really analyze what I'm saying when I say that our quantum reality is, manifesting from a fifth orbit, and that, the universe isn't expanding. Our perception is being stretched. We used to literally think the sun went around the earth. That was our perception. We stand on Earth, we look up, yeah, the sun goes around the earth. That is the case. When you look out at the sky at night, the sun goes around the earth, right? So when you look out at the edge of the universe at night, the universe is expanding, right? So what I'm saying here is that it's another layer of perception. But I want to see what Stephen here has to say. I co-create time as we say it. So like always spiraling. Oh, we would have to talk about that in an actual conversation. Let's see.
That's why I put it up there.
Always spiraling inwards, creating more time and more conscious experiences at the end of the day.
I honestly think that we have to have some sort of cohesive structure, like I was talking about earlier, some sort of playground, some kind of sandbox, some kind of fabric. And I always thought of time as that fabric, that time wasn't created, or okay, so yeah, you can create your own time or whatever, but there's got to be some kind of fabric that we all exist, one big playground, right? And that our spirits come and enter and go, leave and come and go and leave and come. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I would like to think of, right? Because then you could say, here's the physical part of that playground, right? And then here's the sort of metaphysical or the spiritual aspects of that.
That's pretty much where the book does take us to. I mean, you had the image of the cover. Here, I have this so people can see it.
Yeah.
But basically, the cover shows the physical realms as we evolve. Yeah. This is like one universe leading into the next universe, leading into the next universe, leading into the fractals as they like become denser harmonics. But what's also important to understand is too, and I even opened it up just because I figured that might be coming up here. So let me do the share screen again.
And one analogy I like to use for my thinking is that as that tree is falling in the woods, people can be coming and going into that same existence, right?
Definitely. I mean,
right. Some people think that the tree doesn't exist and it doesn't make a sound. Well, that tree can exist and it can make a sound. While whether I'm here or not, or whether you're here or not,
Well, yeah, I mean, it makes an energy wave, right? Whether or not you have the ability to hear, it's a different thing. Like, if you don't have ears, you won't hear it. That doesn't mean an energy wave didn't happen. If you have synesthesia and you see sounds, then all of a sudden you saw the energy wave. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
Let's see.
His comment.
Can quantum particle physics hold building blocks of time? Or is time a byproduct?
I personally think that time is just a measure of your own perception of existence. In other words, I don't know, this sounds dumb, but I don't think there is such a thing as time. I think that we came up with a way to measure, right? Because we came up with a need for time because we live on a planet that rotates once every 24 hours, and the sun comes up and goes down, and we found a way to measure that, right? We divided that up into 24 hours. So we created this sort of perception of time, but I don't see a need for time to be created or destroyed, right? And because you get relativity, right? So if I'm on Earth, I have my own perception of time, and if someone's traveling at some percentage of the speed of light, their perception of time is different from mine. Right? How can we all have different perceptions of time if we're not creating it ourselves, the perception of it ourselves?
Right. I like this question a lot. And do you want to keep going on it, or I mean,
no, I'm sorry. I thought you were digging for something. I just wanted.
No, I was thinking. I wanted to make sure I
you
understood the question and that I answer this as comprehensively as I can. quantum particle physics, right? So basically how matter is manifesting into our reality. And then you also have the superphysical nature, right? So that fifth dimension. I really think that if I just do a share, it shows that it really is a combination of both. At least
Thank you,
from like
Stephen, by the way, for your support there.
Yeah, the way I see it here, like I have the infinite pool of experience. I think Steve actually might have gotten this book. But so here's the book open already, so multiple pages. And then basically what I'm saying, what I like to say is that time is that vortex. So like Tony, almost like what you're saying, time is, it already exists in vortex form, right? But then we have, I'm trying to get to the right page. I apologize.
No, it's okay. I just always wonder why there is a need for time to exist, except for when we need to measure motion, or why does time need to exist?
Well, in order to experience, right? And so what I mean, at the end of the day, this goes into the whole physics of love book again, right? So where we, depending on your delusions, because if you create some type of delusion, now you've created a vortex, which literally is in essence creating a loop of time in itself. So in a way, that's where like you can create your own vortexes of time. But so I don't know if you can see my screen.
Let me just ask you a question. And I know this is probably going down a rabbit hole. Okay. If I'm out in the middle of deep space, I can't see there's nothing around me. I can't see. It's total darkness.
Okay.
And I'm there by myself. Somehow I can magically breathe and survive. What is my reference point? What is time to me at that point? If I'm not moving, there's no motion, there's nothing around me that's moving. I don't have anything to gauge motion from, to measure.
You're still moving though, right?
No. How do I know I'm moving?
That's where everything is moving. I mean, it's to say that there's like a still object in space is
I guess what I'm saying
that exists.
Yeah, I guess I'm saying maybe I have my own perception of time, in that I only need it when I need to measure, like how, what time did you and I need to meet today?
So
we set up a structure of time so that we can meet at some coordinate in space.
But it's a relationship of energy. At the end of the day, it's a relationship of energy. So like, but what I wanted to answer Stephen's question basically. So if you have this as the big red ring, call it the greater Om. It's almost like God, right? It's the biggest Om of creation. It's the biggest vortex of creation. And that is the one that is the laminar flow. It is our naturally manifesting universe that has no wants, don't wants, spirals of delusion, you could say, turbulent flows within it. Like that is a perfect vortex in that image. And so in that essence, all matter would be manifested from that quantum, the first half, like you're saying. But since we live in this quantum reality of wants, don't wants, assumptions, and expectations, you literally get something. I drew a picture of it in a different CAD model. I can open that up real quick. Let me find that. But so then you get a different. Here, I'll leave this open real quick while I find it.
That'll keep me from going down another rabbit hole.
Well, exactly. Everyone's busy for a second.
I've always had this question of why time was needed, except for obviously organizational means and methods.
Right.
Why did it have to be a thing? And until we need it. In other words, if you lived on a deserted island, you had nothing ever to do except go to bed. Why would you need time?
Can you share?
Oh, I need to share this. Yeah.
That other drawing. So basically, what I wanted to show. So the other drawing was basically like a perfectly smooth, flowing quantum. Only the first half of what your question asked. This second half. So now that you can see, there's turbulent flows. Each one of those represents a karmatic cycle, almost like a cycle of creation of, like, I always refer back to my own product, the skate case, because I don't like making fun of other people's products. So I'll say if someone lives their entire life fulfilling my personal want of skate case to go out into the world, now they've almost created their own time in a way. They've created their own fractal of a delusion. And so when it comes out to a greater structure within the harmony of the universe, I'm going to do a stop share. I'm going to do a new share here.
I like your term delusion after all.
Well, it's not one with that greater ring, right? God.
Yeah.
I don't like using the word God, but
I know.
God, it's not the bigger
I was just kidding.
Not the biggest flow of reality.
Yeah.
And so go back to this screen share here. And so I use this, but this is a good, really good to kind of like show what we're talking about.
Yeah, I like this one, the laminar flows.
Exactly. And so you call this the blue, the laminar flows of reality. But then you have now your second half of the question, or does man create their own times in a way? I forget the full wording of that question. But so here you have man creating their own vortexes of time in a way that remain detached. And now this takes it into this next bit is where we would be going into a rabbit hole if you want to hear that. Do you want the rabbit hole answer? Like to keep going?
Let's hear the rabbit hole answer. We've gone down plenty today.
Some people like to say that this raw energy of experience, what we're looking at right now, is used by ET for their own purposes, right? This is like the Lush energy. It's the raw energy of experience. And then some people talk about the concept of a harvest, right? And one picture I saw on Twitter, and I wish I remembered who drew it, their name exactly. But it was a very similar drawing to my physics of love drawing. But instead of it being a two-dimensional drawing, it showed it as a tree. And it showed fractals of delusion as almost like flowers budding off that main stem, right? And so when it comes to like creating your own space and your own delusion, it's almost like each one of these spirals that you create from your own wants, don't wants, assumptions, and expectations is a fruit almost of some sort that is growing on a tree. And so it's almost, that's just another way to look at it, right? So like, yes, quantum particle physics, particles do manifest from that quantum greater laminar flow, but then I would say our minds, with the ability of wants, don't wants, assumptions, expectations, and pacing about the golden spot, literally create all these vortexes, which can then be picked as some type of fruit, right? I don't know if that makes any sense. But
well, and see, I like the idea that the delusion creates space, but I don't see the need for it to create time, unless so time to me is just is something it's like my tape measure I pull out. Whenever I need to scale a drawing, I pull out my scale.
It wouldn't create time, right? Because time is that energy, and there's only so much of that original energy, right? It would create experience within time. How does that sound? Because each one of those vortexes would be an experience within time. It's not actually creating time. It's not creating raw energy. It's creating an experience.
I keep living in my own reality so much that I forget what the requirement of time. Why is there a requirement to have this time? This thing.
Why is there a requirement to have this time? I don't know the answer to that. I mean, at the end of the day, it's because we experience is why we have time. Right? I feel like if we didn't have any type of, if you had no ego at all in relationship to the magic squares that we were talking about earlier, you would be perfectly invisible with everything. You literally wouldn't even exist. The only reason why I do exist is because I have some ego. That's the only reason why I look like I do. And so I think once people like really understand the whole golden spot, and I know this might be in the woo-woo realm, but it gets into like quantum healing, like literally instantaneous healing of your body by being at your golden spot. Like, yeah. And then all kinds of other effects potentially. But that could be a different day. We talk about that.
Well, this all puts my mind in a place where I have a hard time being a host because I just want my mind to drift. And and not
Yeah, I
be
mean,
a
if you wanted to go back to the magic squares, just to kind of circle it all back,
how could we possibly circle back? I don't
pretty
know.
easily,
We're
actually.
so far,
So
we're
now
so far out.
we understand all those realms of space. We
Steve
understand that there's this big vortex of energy, and that our consciousness is tuned to a certain distance from that center of time, right? And so just to circle it all back, which let me do a new share just so we do this right.
Oh yeah, I was gonna. Oops.
I have this going. If you have something else you wanted to share too, I mean, we do that. But I just wanted to circle it back to the magic square, and then you could pull out your model, right?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna do after.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me just do this real quick then, and then so basically, this represents the magic square right here, but it's called the magic sphere because we're going circular, and it shows how when you create that vortex of energy, literally. The big square represents this, but once you have that 4-to-1 stretch ratio, you're now tuned and perceiving this layer of reality. So every time you have a new 4-to-1 stretch ratio, you're perceiving a denser and denser realm of reality. Right? So what we're trying to do with the magic square, as far as making it an interdimensional telescope, would create that 4-to-1 stretch ratio where your beta harmonic naturally harmonizes with that next layer of physical reality. Right? And so that's why you would make magic squares, and potentially even use that concept of stacking squares to create a nice big vortex to do that.
The scalability is what, for me, is what's impressive with the magic squares, right?
It can be any size.
Yeah, the scalability of it is kind of that's what kind of makes it magical to me. If there is such a thing called magic,
I think so. I mean, when it comes to the human experience, I think that like things just blipping into Slitty, people are calling like magical at this time, you know. So
and
like,
see, there's another word that we have to take into context, right? If people have these fanciful ideas of what magic is, well, it doesn't have to be a fiction, right?
No, not at all. It can be very real. And what I think is really cool, though, is where the magic square, the principal foundation of the magic square in relationship to human language, it literally is what founded human language and a whole bunch of other things. Like magic squares at the end of the day are very ancient technology, which I think I find extremely fascinating. Yeah. I didn't find anything good there, but yeah, they're like, I was trying to do a quick Google search for us. I couldn't find anything good, but yeah, if you look at magic square, like let me Google ancient magic square real quick because you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. And what I find interesting is that some of them are associated with the ancient sites that are found on our planet. So here, I'll do a new share for us. And when it comes to naturally occurring interdimensional telescopes, they could potentially be related to energetic vortices, which would be happening at magnetic hotspots on Earth. And when it comes to like the ancients, well, they built all their stuff at magnetic hotspots. And so it's like, okay, you have naturally occurring vortices, you have ancient megalithic structures, and you have magic squares strategically planted there. And then you have this guy, I forget his name, but he had a very vivid UFO experience to the point where he literally wrote out binary code. The binary code gets translated, and it literally has the longitude and latitude of all these ancient sites. And it says progression of humanity at these ancient sites.
I remember that. I can't remember the name that you're speaking.
You know what I'm talking about? I mean, if you just type binary download. But so here's a magic square, ancient. The magic square on the passion, whatever that. There you go. There's something. And then here's another ancient magic square concept. So it's not new technology by any means. It's like the principle of the yin yang. I mean, it's super ancient concept. And it's even what the foundation behind sigil magic, which is another very interesting thing. It really does go back a long way. But where I got it from was John Searle, right? The guy who invented the flying disc, John Searle Magic Square. He's the guy that got me onto it. And, you know, he makes his Searle effect generator by understanding the principles behind the magic square. It's everything from human language to literally sigil magic to UFO technology. So that, I mean, there's something there, you know, some people might want to look into
it. And you can't do it in a day.
No, I mean, you could. It really doesn't seem that complicated. I mean, like literally you get one of these guys, you make those iron rods instead, you hook up a, you know, your amperage controller, you hook up whatever.
Like a rheostat type thing where you can crank. Yeah.
And like you're saying, so here you have this now, right? And then here you have your platform. Some type of platform goes on top of it. And then here is, you know, your telephone booth. We're just going to use some green goo, some green dye.
Yeah.
And so now you have this green dye. It's going to be inside of a magnetic vortex. And it's going to be, with the proper crunch and stretch ratio, I mean, it could literally be experiencing another realm of experience.
I think it's going to take more power than I have at my house.
Well, probably if we need to create like a 4-to-1 stretch ratio with actual fabric of space-time. But that's when when you think about it, when it comes to getting a bucket of water and swirling it with your hands, and then getting the bucket of water to make a whirlpool, it doesn't all happen instantly. It kind of over time makes a bigger and more defined whirlpool. So maybe with low voltage, just constantly running, you would eventually whirlpool up the space-time. You know, that's where I don't really know. How sticky is space to itself? You know? Or the natural synchronization.
That's interesting. You can leave it running, and when you get up in the morning, half of your house might be gone.
Right. I mean, you got to make sure you turn it off, because if not, you'll have like created another entire universe.
And then you might see dino beavers coming through the vortex.
But I think this is a good start right here, just this little simple concept. And like, even if you just put metal, so for this, I just need to put some metal rods in there, you know.
I wonder what kind of instrument you could put above it to measure the difference. What would you be measuring?
I forget exactly the terms behind them all, but they have stuff like that. And then you could, just to see if it's working, you could literally get a compass and just put it on the middle of it and see if the compass is spinning with the vortex of energy.
And you could, I guess if you had enough money, you could do like a gravity, measure the gravity above it with lasers or something. Like the way they measure the gravity, the interference with gravitational waves, the wave detectors that we have here on Earth.
Oh yeah, well, we were talking about that with Chris Lato, the interferometer, or I don't know if that's the right word. But we were talking about that with the lasers and how they measure the
right.
But I wanted to just mention real quick how this actually relates back to our experience. So now imagine this represents it represents literally a vortex. So imagine like I wish I had a big cone. I could just like
I know what you mean though. Yeah, a cone is a good word.
When it points upwards, right? Depending on which way the vortex is spinning, you're going to have a cone. And if you're here, it's either going to be energy coming towards you or energy going away from you. If the energy is going away from you and getting bigger, you'll be experiencing the lower verse realm. If it goes the other way, you're going to experience the Noviverse realm, right? So that's literally density control. When you turn it sideways to the flow of density or gravity, you're going to create motion through time, which could literally translate into like either physical motion or a time dilation of some sort. So you have density control when you go up and down, and you have like motion or dilation control when you go horizontal. But it's all relative to the flow of gravity, which is the flow of manifestation in our local space-time. Yeah. So it's all related to the, you know what I'm saying? Like by orientating it in different ways, you'll be able to do different things.
I think my brain is overloaded for today.
I'm good.
I know you are.
No, like I'm overloaded too. I'm ready, you know, to call it. But
well, thanks, Alexei. These kind of discussions, I think, to me, they help kind of push us into that realm of thinking that we all need to start getting into, because we're so used to going through time, just the motions, the daily motions, because we have allowed time to enslave us to a certain extent. I think, right? We get up 6 o'clock, we eat breakfast, we go to work, we come home, we watch the news, we're kind of a slave to time in a respect. But so these kind of discussions help us get out of that, get our minds out of that realm and into the other realm, these other realms. So,
can I finish with a poem on time?
Yeah. Oh my gosh! Thank you. That would be much better than my words. Yes.
No, I mean, I really enjoy what you just said. You inspired me to want to do that. Like, so this, this is I have my book of poetry in here, and this one is called "Time Is But a Thought," and it's literally almost word for word what you were just saying. So here we go. Time is but a thought built straight from your mind. It cannot be sold or bought, and thinks you fall behind. Many stress as the hours go by. With no place to rest, ask yourself why. Did man make the clock? Yes, I believe we did. So is it solid like a rock? No, it can be mended. We create our days, and we create our ways. It is all a choice, although you may feel you have no voice. Open your eyes and open your heart. Notice the lies, that's a great start. Yes, time may equal money and can buy you endless honey. But is your life yours, or is it controlled by your chores? We live once for certain, so do take advantage. Dreams reveal the curtain with endless possibilities to manage. Time is but a joke created by man to listen. There was then, now, and then, all to make man wealthy and glisten. So do take note that time is just a tool. It is fluid and you own it. And that, my friend, is truly cool. There you go.
That is truly cool.
Right?
And with that,
own your time.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Alexei. We'll get together again, and if you don't mind, and because I wanted to do kind of a series of these kind of things.
Yeah, I mean, we can get probably.
Because I'm not satisfied with conversations with normal humans. I have to have them.
I don't have conversations with normal human beings, so that's why I think it would be cool. We get Chris on here as well.
Yeah,
we'll knock out some more details. We'll get a telephone booth on there, and maybe we'll have a really fun podcast where we all meet up and we're literally in this telephone booth, experiencing an alternate dimension. It could be fun.
Well, thanks, Alexei. We'll see you next time. We'll see you next one. Thank you.
See it.
See it. All right. That's awesome. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Stephen, for your support. I don't really advertise for support, but I appreciate it. I really do. I thank you for that. And we will certainly be back again. Chris Lato, hopefully, will join us next time. He was kind of our little third person we were missing today. He was doing some things. He's 5 hours ahead of us, so it's hard to get him here on a Friday night away from family stuff, which I understand 100%. Anyway, I'm going to stop rambling and thank everybody for watching.